Good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our session. We're going to talk today about how simulations can be used to assess 21st century skills in an efficient way. I'm Dave McCool. I'm the president and CEO of Muzzy. We're a company that's been in the sort of game-based learning and simulation space for a long time. Naomi?
And I am Naomi Boyer. I am the Senior Director of Skills and Data Ecosystem at Education Design Lab. Really excited to be here with you today. We're going to learn more about Education Design Lab and what we've put together, but I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Tara, next to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tara Laughlin. I am also with Education Design Lab, working alongside Naomi. I am an education designer focused on micro-credentialing and specifically the XCredit project lead. So you'll get to hear more about that project in a little while. So our goals for our time together today are threefold. First, you all will get to take a look at the lab's 21st century skills competency framework. Second, you'll get to explore an actual next generation competency-based assessment of a 21st century skill developed using the Muzzy technology. And finally, you'll have the opportunity to think about how you can maximize authentic assessment to validate skills at scale, both through the method that we present to you here today and otherwise.
So I'm going to give a little background on Muzzy. So like I mentioned before, we've been in the simulation and game-based learning space for almost 20 years now, working with a lot of different publishers and content producers, but really focused sort of always back in on how can simulations or simulated learning environments help practice and develop skills and then provide a method for auto-assessing them that scales much better. So SaaS platform is our model. We partner with institutions. We build content, but we also help partner with others who build content who would like to build their own simulations, and have partnered with EDL to work on building 21st century skills simulations specifically. So just a little bit of background on our platform. It's really came out of a year-long Gates-funded research study we did a few years back, surveying online higher ed and trying to figure out how game-based learning and simulated experiences could seamlessly integrate with curriculum that was already out and deployed. So, the thing we kept hearing from people was, please do not disrupt my course. I like what you're telling me you can do with simulations, but it's got to be built in a way that it integrates to what I do today, works with my LMS, meets my accessibility goals, provides the data analytics I can to make use of it. So that's Muzzy in a nutshell.
And now we're going to jump into the lab, but when we talk about Education Design Lab, it's not quite as much fun to say as Muzzy Lane. I like saying Muzzy Lane, and as long as you don't mess up the fuzzy and the muzzy, you're in good shape. But thank you, everybody. Nice to be here with you today. I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about the lab and who we are. So Education Design Lab is a national nonprofit. We kind of live in the space between education and workforce and help connect and bridge those topics together. At the lab, we work on many of the wicked problems that keep learner earners from capitalizing on their skills to land jobs that will give them social and economic mobility, helping rise that tide. We co-design with partners like all of you through a human-centered design process and work on areas such as affordability, relevance, portability, flexibility, and for us, as a moral imperative, most of all, and you're going to hear a lot about this today, visibility. How do we make skill visibility evident for someone, what they know and they can do in order to get them into the jobs and the work that can better their lives? Our partners are colleges, universities, K-12 systems. We have many, many partnerships, as you can see. We're partnering with over 100 employers. They inform our practice as we design those solutions and prototypes. And we've really recently, within the last year, kind of immersed ourselves and worked with full ecosystems around these topics. And our learners, these are the folks that we are targeting, making a difference for. And it should say learner earners, because we know now it's no longer you finish school, you go into work, and you go through this very linear trajectory. It's this kind of looping opportunity for learning. So we target new majority learners, and these are the learners that are not the typical 18 to 22-year-olds who enter college and immediately go into high school. Some of our projects and learner earners, you can see what's on listed there as some of our projects, such as, working with our transfer students, making the pathways easier. Single success for single moms is one of our projects. We're currently really immersed in designing micro pathways, but we've also have a history, which you're going to learn more about, around the digital micro-credentials for 21st century skills. We approach everything with that learner lens, and equity is at the center of what we design. So now I want to know a little bit about you. This is a poll everywhere. If you have your cell phone, I'm going to pull up this little QR code for you. You can take a quick picture of that and it should come up right in your cell phone. And I'm going to shut that now, but you can also go on because we're on the web here, you can go to pollev.com/the-lab or text. You can just text the lab to this number, 22333. And just answer, what is your role? And we should see those responses coming in. Let me know if you're having any issue getting this deployed. There we go. I see a response coming in, so I think it's working. Is anyone stuck? Please let us know if it's a problem. Oh, QR code back up. Okay, everybody, bear with me a second. You're not going to see the results for a second. Let me put that QR code back up for you. And can I pull it down now? Okay. Yep, no problem. There we go. Now we've got some responses coming in.
If you said other, would you mind sharing with us in the chat what your role is?
I think some aren't playing along. Let me just warn you, we've got a couple of questions for you, so you may want to go ahead and pull it up if you haven't already. Oh, interesting. Researcher, business analyst. Oh, I love it. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing. That just gives us a little bit of a context. We will have other questions throughout, so don't completely close out of there. There's going to be the same code. I'll pull up the QR code again. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Tara, to take you through our next piece here, talking about XCredit.
All right, well, thanks, Naomi. So the assessments that we'll be sharing with you today are being developed as part of a project called XCredit, which stands for Experience Credit. And essentially, we recognize that individuals possess many skills for which they have no tangible documentation, such as a certificate, a degree, a credential. These skills are developed over the course of life and work, and they're just as valuable as those skills that are gained from a formal learning experience. And yet, because of that missing credential or that missing documentation, they're pretty much invisible to employers. Next slide. And so we're developing these assessments with Muzzy Lane to capture and validate these existing skills that people already have. And specifically, we're focused on 21st century skills, such as those that you can see here on the screen. These are the lab's suite of 8 micro-credentials that we offer. And so working with Muzzy Lane, as well as one other assessment partner called Tailspin, we're developing experiential assessments that allow an individual to showcase, not to gain or to develop, but just to showcase the skills that they have. So using either Muzzy Lane's authentic chat-based simulation technology or Tailspin's extended reality technology. And you can see a screenshot of each of those there. So we're currently in year 1 of a 3-year design challenge, so pretty early stages in this work. As you can see, this year we're actually designing and prototyping assessments specifically for a military use case to validate the 21st century skills of veterans and service members transitioning from the military into the civilian workforce. Next year, we'll start piloting this first round of assessments, as well as begin design for a civilian use case. Okay, so now for the fun part. I know that you want to take a little peek under the hood and see what these assessments actually look like, and that's coming very soon, but we're going to give you a little bit of background information to help contextualize what you're about to see. So our assessment approach, what you'll notice as you experience the assessment we share with you today is each assessment is situated in a workplace-based scenario. And the reason for this is we're trying to validate skills so that an individual can signal them to a potential employer. So we need to know, what does it look like when an individual actually uses that skill in the workplace? In this scenario, the learner is given data and they're asked to make choices, which will reveal their level of skill based on the choices that they make. And then each decision actually branches the learner down a different path within the simulation. And so in the XCredit project, Naomi, let's see if you click one more time, we've actually narrowed our set of 8 micro-credentials down to 3. So we're currently developing these assessments for oral communication, critical thinking, and creative problem solving. And each of those micro-credentials, so the ones you saw on the previous slide, is actually made up of 4 component parts, which we call the sub-competencies. So in this case, you can see that our badge for critical thinking is right there in the center. And it's actually made up of 4 smaller components shown around the outside. So in the upper left, you'll see gather and assess relevant information, as well as a brief competency statement for that, as well as identify patterns, question assumptions, and draw conclusions. And so if a learner is able to demonstrate evidence of all 4 of these sub-competencies, these stack together to add up to critical thinking, to earn the critical thinking credential. And so the assessment that we'll be showing you today is actually focused on just one of these 4 sub-competencies, which is question assumptions. So you can see that question assumptions looks like resisting easy answers, probing more deeply, and improving upon the problem-solving process. So the question assumptions assessment, which again, we developed using Muzzy Lane's technology, it's a chat-based simulation, and you'll be playing the role of a produce manager at a regional supermarket where there suddenly seems to be pressure to increase your organic produce options. So to decide what your store should do, you're going to review a memo and have conversations with a few colleagues and customers. And one thing I do want to elaborate on just a bit there is we are attempting to design these assessments to be relevant and accessible to as broad an audience as possible. And therefore, you know, we've opted not to situate the assessments in a really specific industry for the sub-competency level. So you'll notice that this assessment is actually situated within a grocery store. And we did that deliberately, choosing a location that we thought as many people as possible would be comfortable and familiar with. A separate set of assessments that we're building, we're referring to as capstone assessments, and those actually stack all the sub-competencies together into one more complex assessment. Those were actually looking at creating variations to situate within specific industries, such as IT, healthcare, manufacturing, and construction. And so, oh, sorry, Naomi, go back one more.
Okay.
So the criteria associated with this assessment, you and learners who complete the assessment are going to be assessed on your ability to, 1, identify stated assumptions, 2, identify unstated assumptions, those are hidden assumptions, and then 3, demonstrate how would you verify if an assumption is correct. And one thing I want to be super clear on is we still have not fully worked out the kinks in our scoring algorithms. So this is just an early prototype. And that means, you know, if you get to the end of this assessment and your results pop up, just know at this moment to take those with a little bit of a grain of salt, because we're still tinkering with those formulas to make sure we get the scoring right. All right, so Naomi, do you want to get them started here?
I'd be happy to. We need to grab the link, I think, and put that. Oop.
Oh, I got that for you. I'll put that in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put the link in chat. You can use this tiny URL as well to type it into your browser. It should take you to the simulation. We're going to give you time to actually complete the simulation and give it a try. I do see there's a chat in here, and while you guys are busy going through that, I'll go ahead and answer, see. Oh, thank you, Luke. Luke is our friend. To see what response we need there. But Tara, how much time did we say we were going to give them to go through the exercise?
I think we're aiming for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
You're going to want to play as a new student. So there's a button, new student. You can continue. And it will let you into the assessment. And you should be able to start it right from there.
Let us know if you're having any issues getting into the assessment. But we thought it would be meaningful and valuable to have you go through it yourself rather than just demonstrating it to you. And remember, this is a beta. This is we are just developing these. These are prototypes. And so your feedback is really, really valuable to us, and which we're going to ask you for when we come back. So we're going to give it about 10 minutes. And if you can stay off camera, but then come back on if you want once you get completed.
Yeah, and you should see when you first came in an access code, which is also probably in the upper right corner of your browser bar as well. So if you write that down, if you don't complete, if 10 minutes isn't long enough, or if you get disconnected, when you go back into that same join URL, if you provide that code, you'll continue as the same person. You can pick up where you left off.
Very good.
Oh, Tara, we don't have your countdown timer.
Oh, yes, that is right. Well, what I think I'll do, I'm going to monitor the clock, and in 10 minutes, I'm going to check in with everyone just to see how many of our friends are finished and who might need 1 or 2 more minutes. So I'm watching the clock. So we are at about 5 minutes remaining, just for those of you playing. We're about halfway through our time.